this is James, and I'm here with the Oracle Outlook for the week starting July the 3rd, 2017. This week, I really wanted to work once again with my Mad Deck Crush, so the deck that's going to be assisting me for this week's reading is once again the Illuminated Tarot. The deck is by Caitlin Keegan, and it is published by Clarkson Potter. So I have the deck on hand. I'm going to take a few moments to shuffle the cards, and as I shuffle the cards, just as I do for each of these weekly general readings, I am setting the intention and asking the question, what do we need to know for the week ahead? All right, I'm going to take a moment and shuffle the cards my other way, just to get a really nice, thorough shuffle. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and cut the cards. And now I'm going to fan them out. And when I'm working with my tarot or playing cards, because this deck has a playing card deck structure, I like to pull 3. So I'm looking at the fan for the 3 cards that are getting my attention. And now that I picked those 3 cards, I'm taking the remainder of the deck and I'm putting it aside. So when I work with tarot cards or playing cards, or in this case both, I tend to read the cards from left to right. So the left card is going to be opening the reading up. So let's see what the energy is or the theme is for this week. Okay, so here we have the 8 of Hearts. So the interesting thing about this deck, if you're new to seeing me work with this deck, is that this deck has a couple of ways it can be read. I noted that it has a playing card deck structure, so that's the first lens I use. But then it combines, tarot and playing cards, so there is a tarot card significance to it, and in some cases, 2 tarot cards have been combined. So I'm saying all that to say, this is one of those cards. So here we have the 8 of Hearts, which is also the moon. So the first thing that I want to acknowledge, the suit of hearts is a suit that can represent emotions, feelings, relationships. So that may be the thing that we're experiencing this week in terms of the situation. If I read the card as a situation, possibly there may be an emotional situation we're dealing with, a relationship-oriented issue, or something having to do with healing, right? Then the 8 here can represent a change in status. That's how I tend to read the 8 in cartomancy. So it can represent, there may be an emotional change that we're going through, there may be a relationship change, a change in status, whether that's, something positive or something that may be challenging in terms of the status change, but there could be a change in that. Sometimes if we go with the challenging aspect of it, let's say, the 8 of Hearts is a card where we're at a place emotionally where we feel like we've done all we can do in a situation and it's time to move on, right? And so sometimes that can be people, that can be circumstances, that can be environments. We've gotten to a place where it feels that the relationship, the environment, the circumstance is no longer a healthy thing for us to be in, right? So with that, the 8 of Hearts can represent like a departure. Like we're departing, we're moving away from something. We're moving away from something in order to move on, right? So there's that aspect of it. It's about feeling a need to move on. So going with the whole idea about, an unhealthy situation, sometimes this card can represent, it's a form of detox. So as I'm saying that, for someone watching this video, you may actually have to embark on a literal detox where you're flushing certain things out of your body or system as a way for you to heal, because the other aspect of the suit of hearts is about healing. So someone may literally have to go through a detox or some sort of cleanse as a way to flush out their system. They may have some sort of toxin in their system that they're wanting to flush out. So you have to like go on a cleanse or a detox, right? So there's that. If it's not a literal, then it can be either an emotional or spiritual form of detox, where we just make a decision that we are going to leave toxic people, toxic situations, toxic environments in the past. Right, so there's that. Now, bringing in the moon aspect of the card, the moon would further add to that. It may be a case of a situation has gotten so toxic, that's the word I keep seeing, toxic, because we have become very sensitive to it, because the moon aspect of the card represents heightened sensitivity, right? So as a result of becoming really sensitive, we become really aware of our environment and the people that we hang around with, and their possible effects that they have on us, whether they are aware of it or not. You know, just because we label somebody as toxic doesn't mean that they're fully aware or fully conscious of they're being toxic to us, right? So there's that. So it could be like you are needing to empower yourself, because the 8 is a number of power. So you may need to empower yourself to make the decision to move away from unhealthy people, relationships, circumstances, and environments, right? And there may be, with the moon card going with that, there may be a sense of like uncertainty about that. There may be a sense of confusion about that, because we don't know maybe what we're moving into. We know what we're moving away from, but we may not know what we're moving into, right? Because this card sometimes can represent like moving into unfamiliar or unknown territory, right? So there's that. And sometimes because people are not comfortable with elements of their lives that are unknown or unfamiliar or uncertain, they tend to stick with what they're familiar with. And sometimes the familiar thing that we are accustomed to may not be the best and healthiest thing. But sometimes we stay with that because we know it. You know, we're familiar with it. You know, it reminds me of that expression, it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't know, that kind of thing, right? So 8 of Hearts, again, we're taking a look at, you know, is this a time where we're feeling called or we're feeling led to make some changes, and part of that is about moving on, you know, and we're doing it with the sense of like, we need to do it because it's the healthiest thing that we need to do for us, or that we can do for us in the moment, right? And so again, that may be taking a look at our relationships. It could be taking a look at situations that we have been putting energy into and saying, you know what, I've done all I can do here. Instead of it invigorating me, it's now leaving me drained and I'm feeling powerless. So I'm going to take my power back, and the first thing that I can do with that is to step away, right? So there's that. And if we're needing to do that, you know, it's because as a result of being aware or becoming aware that we are very sensitive, right? The other thing about the moon in terms of relationships this week, be very mindful. If you're not leaving a circumstance or a situation or a relationship, be very mindful as you engage with people this week, as you have relations with people this week. Be mindful of how people trigger you, right? And it's not about the person, it's about being aware there's a button that's been pushed. And it may have nothing to do with the person. The person has just created an experience or an opportunity for you to become aware there's a button. How did the button get there? And what do I need to do some work around healing that? Right? So the person's actually giving you an opportunity to take a closer look at that. So those are aspects of the 8 of Hearts and the moon. Next card. Here we have the 4 of Clubs. So now the 4 of Clubs is a card that I will first say can represent the home. Right? So the 4 of Clubs for me can represent home. It could be a room or a building with 4 walls if you go with the number 4. So again, so this could be a situation that may be closer to home for some people than other people, right? So there's that. Now, clubs is also about work or business. So if it's not in the home sense, not in your personal life, then it may be in your working life, right? And it could just be a matter of, this card would suggest 4 of Clubs is all about moving on to the next stage or level. So it kind of reinforces this idea about moving on that we got with the 8 of Hearts, right? This card is saying, okay, it's time to move on to the next stage or next level. Could be looking at the image on the card, there's a path, so it could be like moving on to the next stage or the next level of whatever your path is for you, and taking that step to move forward on it. So remember, I had talked about with the moon card that this idea of being uncertain, moving into uncharted, unfamiliar, unknown territory. Well, here we get a glimmer, like the path will reveal itself to you if you're just willing to take the step. Take the step, even though you may not know where it is that you're ultimately going to wind up, but take the step to move forward. And I'm a big believer in this. We take the step. If we're being guided and led to take a step, and we take the step, the next step will show up along the way, right? So for me, that's what this card is reinforcing with the first card. So again, we're looking at maybe something closer to home, some work we need to do in that relationship. Clubs is all about work and business, like I said, but if it's not about work and business per se, it's about the work we need to do in the business of life. So what is it that I need to work on? What is it that's going to allow me a greater sense of security and stability? Those are aspects of the four, right? And so this is the time where we're maybe doing the groundwork, laying a foundation to build on in the future. So I'm looking at that. For some people, it is going back to what I said about the emotionally sensitivity issue and the idea of possibly being triggered. This card would suggest, like, if you're going to be at work and you work with a team of people or you work with a group of people, it could happen there. And so it's just about navigating that, taking a step back, and saying, okay, how am I going to choose to react and respond to this? Because on some level, a button's been pushed, right? And so doing work around that, not necessarily making it about the people. You may have to do some work with the relationship, don't get me wrong, right? But it's also about looking at why the button is there. How did that button get formed, and what can you do to work on not having it being pressed or pushed in the future, right? So that's what I want to say about the Four of Clubs in the moment. So it's about like doing some work with our emotions, our sensitivity, our relationships, and how people relate to that, or how people play a part in that this week. Okay, so now moving to the last card in the line. Okay, this is very interesting. So we had this card show up the last time I used this deck, and it showed up in the last place. So this is the 10 of Clubs. So now here we have two cards from the same suit. So if it's not about work and business in the literal sense, right? If you're not actually dealing with issues on the job or, with your business, if you are self-employed or you have a small business, the 10 of Clubs is about small business. But if it's not literally about that, then this is about work, energy, and effort being put into a situation so you can be successful at it, so you can complete it, because the 10 is all about success and a transition, but getting to a place where something gets completed, right? So with that, as I said in that previous video, if you happen to watch that, I tend to look at this card as having a lot of work to do. So let's go with the scenario that a person is needing to take a look at his or her working environment, and they're looking at it as a somewhat toxic or unhealthy environment. It could be as a result of people not working together as a team. That would be the Four of Clubs. So there's a team or a teamwork effort or issue here that we're needing to focus on because it's the middle card, right? And then the possibility here with the 10 of Clubs could be like it's because of people being not willing to work as a team, then a lot of work is falling to one person in particular, and it could be you, because this card could represent like, I have a lot of work to do, I have a lot of work in my hands, I have a lot of work to handle. Just it represents a heavy workload, a heavy course load, job duties, responsibilities that have fallen to you, possibly and now have become a burden. So there's that. If we're talking about an emotional situation closer to home, same kind of energy. Could be like one person is doing all the work in the relationship and the other person is choosing not to. And if that's the case, then the 10 of Clubs can be giving you like, we need to have a hard look at this, because on some level we are enabling the other person not to share the load, right? So then the question becomes is like, what do we get out of taking on 100% of the responsibility? Right? Because we engage in behavior that meets a need. So what need is being met by believing that you have to do all the work? right? Because that's your part, right? And sometimes what we do is we take on all the work with the idea that other people may not be capable, may not be responsible, may not be reliable or dependable. But if we continually engage in taking on all the work, we never get to see that change. I'm a big believer in it. When we choose to take on the energy and we choose to do all the work and we tend to be 100% uber responsible, other people around us say, well, if you're going to do it, I'm going to let you do it. You know, in relationships, we teach people how to treat us. So when somebody sees that you're going to do all the work, they may very well let you. Right? So that is with this card. The Ten of Clubs is all about taking a look at what it is that we believe to be burdened with or burdened by. That could be the thing that's creating the sense of unhealthiness that we need to kind of detox ourselves from, that we kind of need to step away from, that we need to kind of look at in a different way, in ways that are going to help us reclaim our power, right? So there's that. So it's like, what are we burdened with? What are we choosing to take on? You know, from the physical standpoint, if somebody is actually doing a physical detox or cleanse, you may find that you are getting an energy boost in the way. You may have experienced a great deal of fatigue, you know, exhaustion, that kind of thing with the Ten of Clubs, but as a result of taking the time and energy to move through that fast, to move through that cleanse, to move through that detox, you may find yourself so energized you want to take on a whole lot of work. Be careful about that. Don't put yourself back into the same cycle that you just got out of, right? The cleanse may actually be the means to help you take a look at that, right? But for somebody else or other people, the lesson with this card or the message with this card could be like, why are we choosing to engage in taking on more than we can handle, right? And what would we be willing to do to change and shift that energy? So on that note, I will end and round out this week's Oracle Outlook. I'm Jameson Mitchell, and as I close, I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's reading, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that you have a tarot-tastic week. Take care.